Hi everybody, it's your digital technology librarian Christy here with you once again. We are already at the weekend. I can't believe another week has flown by. And I'm here with yet another Film Rec Friday for you. This week we are going to focus in and recommend some really fantastic classic films that are available on our video services. And of course, as long as you have a Milan-Berlin Library card, you have totally free access to those three services, which are CleveNet's Overdrive, Hoopla Digital, and Canopy. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started on those recommendations. So let's go ahead and get started with a couple of recommendations from, of course, CleveNet's Overdrive. The first recommendation I want to talk about is a movie called House on Haunted Hill. Now, if you're a fan of horror films, or if you've ever seen Michael Jackson's Thriller music video, you're probably at least vaguely familiar with the main actor in this movie. Vincent Price is really famous for having this ludicrously creepy voice. He could probably recite one of Mother Goose's fairy stories, nursery rhymes. And you would still get chills up and down your spine. It's really a kind of a fascinating tone of voice. Anyway, he's the lead in the original House on Haunted Hill. And of course, this should not be mistaken for Netflix's recent TV series, The Haunting of Hill House, totally different. Nor should it be confused with a couple of remakes that were made in the 90s and the early 2000s. This one's from 1959, totally low budget horror film, but kind of fabulous in that low budget horror film way. Anyway, it's this marvelous blend of both, like, at least to contemporary standards, campy elements, along with truly creepy moments, in large part to this atmosphere that's definitely set by Vincent Price. The story is about this eccentric millionaire who sets up this sort of real life survival game in this haunted house. And he just invites some random people to come attend. Anybody who manages to not leave and to survive until the morning will get $10,000. Now, $10,000 is a lot of money at any point, but back then, if you were to adjust for inflation, today it would be about $89,000, which is a ton of money to simply survive, unless, of course, the consequence is death and not surviving. So when you put it in that context, it's a much bigger deal, I guess. So anyway, as we watch, we are then the members of the audience are responsible for figuring out what's truly going on underneath everything. You know, is the house just this sort of old spooky building, or is it really haunted? Is there really a curse? Could people actually die? And there's a lot going on, and maybe to like today's audience, it's not going to be as scary as, say, like, you know, The Witch, or as unsettling as Midsummer or things like that, but it's definitely got its own vibe, and it's 100% worth watching. And it's a good gateway to a lot of other even more campy Vincent Price titles that I absolutely love. Like, he was in this series of Edgar Allan Poe story adaptations that are absolutely awesome, like The Pit and the Pendulum, The Raven, and this one I think is maybe even a little more accessible than those. So if you like this, then please do check out some of his other work. It's really, really awesome, and it's a wonderful sort of way to look at filmmaking as well, how those like horror special effects have evolved, but how they totally worked back then. So anyway, if you're a fan of horror films, please do check out House on Haunted Hill. It's great, and then hopefully that will lead you to checking out some other similar stories. The second film I'm going to recommend from CleveNet's Overdrive is closely tied in a way to House on Haunted Hill. House on Haunted Hill was extremely successful when it came out. It was totally low budget, so when it really started in raking in the money with these really happy audiences, people really started paying attention. It had both style and a pretty substantive storyline going on, but it also had some really crazy gimmicks that would happen at the theater. I don't want to give too much away about the storyline, but things at certain points in the film, um, different kinds of rigs would be set up in the movie theaters to sort of surprise and frighten audiences. And someone who really was fascinated by this kind of interactive experience was Alfred Hitchcock. Now, Hitchcock always was looking for inspiration, but he loved the idea of this horror film that was ludicrously low budget, somehow managing to speak to audiences. And he wanted to tie in to that sort of phenomenon. And so he came up with his own film that was suspenseful and thrilling, and he put together Psycho. Um, I am a huge fan of Hitchcock in general. I always love his films. I think they're some of the best paced movies ever. And Psycho is absolutely no exception. It is a supremely well done film. Um, most of us out there have seen Psycho at some point. And I'm talking about the original Psycho with Janet Leigh, and not the fairly adaptation from more recent years. Anyway, I hadn't seen this for years. I think the last time I saw it was probably a decade or so ago. And I'd forgotten just how good it really, really is. Like I said, the pacing is amazing. Like, you get these starts and stops, and it's almost jarring with the pace. And then each scene is so well shot and so well put together. The acting is so tight on these on all of those scenes, that it's just a masterclass in filmmaking to watch this. If anyone hasn't seen Psycho before, basic storyline is, this felonious, adulterous secretary is on the run. She ends up in the middle of nowhere at this super remote motel, where she meets this very nice young man named Norman Bates, who is, maybe a little overly friendly, but he's definitely more just this nice guy who's really super isolated with just himself and his mother, and things really stem from that. And it's a movie where everybody matters, but Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates is just ridiculous. Like I said, I'd forgotten a lot of like the little details, and he puts so much into every single scene. So by the end of the movie, you're going back and thinking about everything that he did. Did he communicate this the entire way, and did I just miss it? He really, it really is a phenomenal performance. And of course, like everybody who's in it, like I said, Janet Leigh, it's not just his film, but he's such like a central part of the whole story. And I love performances that really show off things like that. So the storyline itself, plus all of these intricate little pieces that he reveals, it makes this a movie that everyone should see. It's not terrifying or anything like that. I would certainly not classify it as like a horror film, but I would definitely call it like a suspense and like a thriller. So please do check this out. If you've never seen it, you absolutely have to. But even if you have, go back and watch it again. It's really, really fantastic. So both House on Haunted Hill and Psycho are on CleveNet's Overdrive. Great options, so please do take the time and check them out. Our second set of recommendations are going to come from, as usual, Hoopla Digital. And the first of those is the musical Fiddler on the Roof. Now, every once in a while, I'm just in the mood for one of those classic, huge, in your face Hollywood adaptations. And there are few that do it better than Fiddler on the Roof. Um, the musical features one of, for me anyway, the most memorable big brash characters in all of musical theater, and that of course refers to Tevye and the performance by Topol in particular. um, if I Were a Rich Man is one of those that randomly throughout my life I've just started to hum. I don't know why. It's one of those things, but it's just that kind of memorable, and it's just that kind of iconic that I think that performance and that song and that personality just sort of pop up in the front of my brain. Anyway, there are tons of memorable characters in this story. There are tons of likable characters in this story, but nobody stands out the way that Topol's Tevye does. Um, he's the one that, forgive the pun, makes the musical sing. He's big, he's loud, he's brash, he's terribly opinionated, and he sings his opinions at the top of his lungs every couple of minutes. But at the end of the day, what makes this musical work is that he's also just a father. He's living in this very quickly changing and oftentimes scary, dangerous world, and he just wants to protect his daughters. He wants his family to be safe. He wants it to be healthy. He wants it to be happy. He is every dad. Um, and he has to face some pretty harsh realities. And at the same time that he's facing these darker elements, he's really very good natured, and he's very upbeat, and he's very optimistic about the world. And I think that's what really resonates with people. You know, this huge character is just a simple man who wants to do good and wants to see his family do good and be happy. And it's really kind of beautiful in that. Now, besides that sort of very heart centric element to the film, you know, you've also got some ridiculously catchy music, some great choreography. You know, if you watch the movie and leave and aren't humming like matchmaker matchmaker periodically throughout the day for the next couple of days, I don't know what to tell you, because you know, I've seen this so many times, but I still get caught up in the tunes. It's such a earworm of a musical too, you know, like all of it, both the lyrics but also like the actual composition of the music. It's very catchy and very, very much something that will stick with you. um you know, it's one of those that I think everybody should see, but especially musical theater fans. So if you've not seen it, 100% please check it out. If it's been a while since you've seen it, another, it's again definitely worth it. And really, if you just like big classic Hollywood films, this is a must see. So Fiddler on the Roof, please do check it out. My second recommendation from Hoopla is going to be The Magnificent Seven. Uh, I'm generally not super familiar with a ton of westerns outside of like spaghetti westerns, but I do absolutely love The Magnificent Seven. If you've seen, you know, the remake recent years, also an excellent fun movie. It starred Denzel Washington, a whole host of other people, and of course Chris Pratt. Um, and it's great. But if you haven't seen the original film, you absolutely have to. It stars Yul Brynner, who is probably even better known as the King of Siam in the musical King and I. Um, and it does follow the same basic storyline. You know, a band of gunmen is terrorizing a small town. These gunmen decide to band together to rescue this town and uh, try and save everybody, or at least as many people as they possibly can. But most of these characters and the character arcs are a little bit different from the remake. So even if you've seen that newer film, it doesn't mean that you're just going to watch a rehash. A lot of stuff has changed. So, it doesn't feel stale. It definitely feels like a whole new movie, but without being too different at the same time. So each character is played really, really well. That's one of the things with this story that I think resonates so much with audiences, is that each character is very distinct and always cast well. And you, as an audience member, find yourself connecting with all of them. You definitely want to know their stories. You love their backstories. You like watching this trajectory and seeing where fate takes them, which can be at both times awesome or heartrending depending on what happens. And again, since the storylines are different, you don't necessarily know at all what's going to go on. So those performances are played by some of that particular era's favorite actors. You've got, like I mentioned, Yul Brynner, but you also have Steve McQueen. You've got Charles Brosnan, not Brosnan, Charles Bronson, and James Coburn in different roles. And again, those performances are all really wonderful. Those actors and the rest of the cast. Eli Wallach plays the villain, and Eli Wallach is always amazing. So it's exciting, and I think both typical and atypical for a lot of Westerns from that era. So please do check out The Magnificent Seven. It's the other recommendation I have from Hoopla. My last set of recommendations both come from our Canopy service, and the first of those is Seven Samurai. Now, we just finished talking about The Magnificent Seven, and I would be totally remiss if I didn't at least mention Seven Samurai, because it's the film that Magnificent Seven is actually based on. Like we were just saying, Magnificent Seven is really iconic Western film for here in the States, but not everybody knows that it's actually based on a story from Japan about this group of swordsmen who end up being hired and facing off against this violent group of bandits who are torturing this small village. Again, obviously, very similar storylines in that regard. And you've got your 7 characters that you're following throughout. But just because you are familiar with that baseline story does not mean that any of these films are stale or old. If you've seen one, you've seen them all. Absolutely not true. Each one definitely deserves to be watched because they all do such a good job of developing those individuals that you follow throughout the film. Now, like we were saying, you've got your storyline, your base storyline about the 7 heroes or anti-heroes facing off against the big bad bandits. What I really, really love about Seven Samurai is, even more so than in its Western counterparts, you get so attached to each of those 7 warriors. There's just something really different about how they introduce each of those swordsmen and how you sort of grow to care for each of them. They're so very distinctive in their different personalities. It's a total thrill ride while you're seeing these 7 go up against this huge group of bandits, and they're so successful for parts of it and then so not in others. Um, and that's really what makes this movie so exciting. Um, it was directed by the great Akira Kurosawa, and Kurosawa is just well known for being a phenomenal director of these big epic scenes. I've watched almost all of his movies, and they're just so well shot, so well plotted, so well thought out. I mean, just really, really brilliantly done. And some of these battle scenes, they don't have the same kinds of money that we have now. They don't have the special effects. They don't have all of these elements, but I would put some of the battle sequences up against anything that we see in film today. Uh, so if you like those sorts of intricately shot movies, Seven Samurai is definitely something that should be on your list if you've never seen it before. It's an absolute masterpiece. I recommend that everybody watch it. If you like it, make sure that you check out other Akira Kurosawa titles. They're all amazing. Ran is one of my favorite movies of all time. Seven Samurai as well. Uh, I do want to give you a heads up. Seven Samurai is an unbelievably long film. Canopy actually separates it into two parts. So if you get to the end of part one and you're like, what happened? There's also a part two that you can actually click on as well. So don't be surprised once it gets to the end of that reel. But again, 100% recommended. Please do check it out. Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. Now, my last recommendation for this week is yet another Alfred Hitchcock title. This one is called Dial M for Murder. It's a total classic, and it's another really tightly woven thriller. This one stars Ray Milland as a tennis pro with murder on his mind, especially after he discovers that his socialite wife is having an affair. Now, the socialite wife is played by Grace Kelly, looking outlandishly beautiful, as she pretty much always did. And it's one of those films where, I don't know, you're not sure who to root for. Technically, you're supposed to be rooting for the people who aren't planning a murder. But Hitchcock does such a good job of weaving motive into most of his stories that you really sometimes don't know. Do you want that person to get away with it? Do you not? Should you be rooting for justice to prevail? Sometimes you just don't know, and that's one of those things that I absolutely love about Hitchcock stories. I would say for me anyway, Dial M for Murder is definitely one of those. You've got really, really great games of cat and mouse being played by every character throughout the vast majority of the film. And you don't know at any given point who's actually the mouse and who's the cat. And again, one of the great things about Hitchcock. So if you like that sort of twist and turn, push and pull element, please do check out Dial M for Murder. It's available on Canopy and it is fantastic. We are at the end of our list of recommendations again. As always, if you have titles that you would like other people to check out, please do make a mention of it in the comments below. If you have recommendations for different kinds of themes that you'd like to see me cover in other weeks, please mention that as well. With that, I'm going to sign off. I hope everybody has a fantastic weekend. I hope you get to check out some films, and I hope that we'll be able to see you again sometime soon. So you all have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.